Okay, we're on page 70, and so suppose we fall short of the chosen idea and stumble. Does this mean we are going to get drunk? Some people tell us so, but this is only a half-truth. It depends on us and on our motives. Okay, so, like I was saying, a lot of people, it says it's only a half-truth. There are some people who escape the ultimate consequence of their sexual waywardness by getting drunk. There are some who have issues, they deal with it, they fall short, they confess it, they keep working on it. It doesn't cause them to go out and get high or drunk. But I've seen more people in my lifetime where it has been so devastating it's destroyed their life. There are many people sitting in prison right now because of sexual addiction. There are many people who are dead because of sexual addiction. There was one guy that he was 6 months into the program and felt he needed to leave because he missed his girlfriend. And he left. We used to play ping pong together. He was really good at ping pong, and I used to play ping pong all the time, so we played together. So I knew him quite well. And he had a lot of unaddressed issues, even though he was 6 months into the program. And he left to go to be with his girlfriend, and within 2 weeks, she shot him while standing on her porch. They were in an argument. This was in the city of Chester. I forget which street it was that it occurred on, but he was shot, staggered off the porch, down the sidewalk to try to get away from her, and just several feet trying to make it down the sidewalk, he collapsed and died from bleeding out. His girlfriend did that to him. The girl that he longed to leave the program for. So, you know, in recovery, we recommend that you don't start any relationships within the first year. Hopefully within the first 2 years. Because it's such a distraction that you no longer can recover or grow spiritually when you're sidetracked and that's all your mind is thinking about is how to get linked up. It really is quite destructive. It's a replacement for the drug because the relationship is so exciting and new. You enter into this honeymoon period when everything seems to be right, and eventually problems come out of it. So you got to read the section in your relapse prevention book and read it carefully because it's a very important topic that you really got to take a look at. It's one of the step works in step 4. It's called sexual harms. There are some who refuse to enter into that area. When you look at their sexual harms, they might have like 1 or 2 things written down. I said, no. You got to be thorough. There's so much stuff we could write down in that area. But it seems like we want to avoid it because it's a touchy subject that we don't want to address or get straightened out in our life, so we try to avoid it. But at the very least, take a look at it. You might have hang-ups and struggles with it, but take a clear look at it. And when you look back on your life, you get a sense of conviction, like, man, I was a pretty bad person. Look at all the destruction. Look at all the selfishness about what I wanted at the expense of women. You can look back and think of all kinds of stuff. And it should bring you to your knees. It should make you want to say, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. Save me. Save me from myself. I need to get above water. I need to get beyond being so obsessive. There's been times in my life where it had such a hold on me, I cried over it. Amen. Got down on my knees. It wasn't the drugs and alcohol. Even though I had a major relapse a year after that, I eventually got a handle on the drugs and alcohol. It was the The desire to want to have someone in my life. That was the big problem. It drove me to do things. It drove me into situations that I knew was risky. But I was like a Pied Piper. I followed situations. I've had police follow me because of women. I've been in abandoned houses because of women. I've been in jail because of women. I've lost thousands of dollars because of women. I can go on and on. There's times when I anguished on my knees. It felt like a drug. It was the worst drug I ever experienced. The loneliness, the desperation to want someone at any cost. I've gone through it all. So I understand the difficulties of it, but also know that it will destroy your life if you don't figure out how to get a handle on it. It'll take you down quicker than anything else. And there's a lot of Delilahs out there. You know Delilah? Anybody familiar with that story in the Old Testament? Samson was a good man of God. He loved God. But he had an inherited weakness for women. He was a prophet of God. But the Bible don't hold nothing back. It lets you know, hey, this guy is my prophet. But he has a problem. He has a weakness for women. And Delilah knew that and took him for a ride of his life. She deceived him. She lied to him. She fooled him. This attractive-looking woman took him down the wrong path and destroyed his reputation, destroyed his life, destroyed his usefulness for God, got his eyes plucked out. He got a haircut. You ever hear people saying in a dictionary, you keep messing around, you're going to get a haircut. Well, figuratively, he literally actually got a haircut, lost his strength, lost his testimony, lost his power and his reputation. It just destroyed his life. And while in handcuffs, while kind of like in prison, he was in a temple with all these ungodly people, and he just prayed, God, please give me one more opportunity to make it right. I want to make things right. I destroyed my reputation because of this woman. I want to make it right, God. I want to do one more act, one more godly act for you. And they got him up near these big pillars. They held this big roof up. And he, one more time, God gave him strength. And he pushed the pillars, and the whole roof collapsed and killed more people in that one day than his ungodly people in that one day than his lifetime. And that should be a good story for us to think about. I don't want my life destroyed because of women. I've got to get it straight. I got to get it right. I got to figure out how to manage things. Now, I feel concerned about many guys who graduate who don't figure it out, because it's going to be the number one thing that's going to destroy you. I'll give you an example. If you get an apartment or a house and you live by yourself and you have unaddressed sexual issues, your life will probably not succeed, because the isolation, the loneliness, and the pride of saying, look what I got a place. I got a place to live. I got to use it to show off to other women. All that stuff's going to be going through your mind because you have no support system, or you didn't create a way to protect yourself from yourself. I had a house all by myself. It bothered me day after day. Rooms, extra rooms, empty rooms, nice place. And it bothered me day after day. Things that enter into my mind. And then you start rationalizing in your mind. Well, nobody will know. Well, I'll wait till 1 o'clock at night when everyone's off the roads. No one will know. So you keep rationalizing all kinds of stuff in your mind. But at some point, somehow, you're going to meet up with the wrong person, and they're going to destroy your life. They're going to take you down. Or they'll be the seed. They'll be the seed to get it going. And I had to figure out, okay, I don't want to lose my house, but I need to protect myself. So I started renting rooms out to those who were recovering so that I watched them and they watched me. It worked wonders. That extra push, that extra support, that extra accountability helped out a lot. When I came down here to Panama City, this is years after recovery now, and I come down here to Panama City to work. My family's up in Philadelphia. Now here I am alone again, all by myself down here in a foreign city where nobody knows me. I could walk down any street, nobody would ever recognize who I was. You don't think that didn't enter my mind? But this is what I did. I was offered, several blocks away from here, a place to live by myself. Great opportunity. They said, all we want you to do is just maybe do some painting, fixing up. Sounds like a great deal. A house to yourself, you just do some painting and fixing up, help the owner. And it didn't take me very long, even though it was a very gracious invitation, it didn't take me very long. It scared me. It didn't take me very long to say, no. I appreciate it, but I don't want to do that. You know where I stayed? Right down the hallway where the shelter's day room is. That was my office. I went out and bought a cot, and I slept here because I was too scared to do anything else. And I remember one time I went to church, went out to eat, and I was coming back. It was like, by that time it was probably like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And when I came walking in, the front desk asked the famous question, and I loved it. I just loved it. Where you been? I'm like, okay, yeah, I like that kind of accountability because it keeps me on my toes. And they point blank asked me, where you been? It's 10 o'clock. And I said, well, I had to explain myself out. I went to church and I went to eat. But I thank God for accountability, because without it, we will go astray. We will do things. And I stayed put there and went to sleep early and got up early. And that was my routine. I created a routine. Once you get a routine, it's pretty easy to live life. Once you got a good routine, your body is habitual and it becomes automatic. And until I could get my other accountability in front of me, which was my family. I've learned ways. Yeah, I think you were here.
I remember when you got here, it was a lot of busy work.
I painted. I mean, yeah, we painted, we fixed up. Yeah, my free time, I try to stay occupied and busy. Yeah.
This chapel was like a bright lime green. It was ugly.
Well, yeah, that was the color that we picked down here. I got a couple complaints out of it. But yeah, all the guys, we got together, we did stuff, stayed busy. But, it's never, you don't ever lose, whatever your weak link is, it's going to be your weak link for the rest of your life. So you always got to be, you can't go where angels fear the tread. And I could go into detail how I ended up in jail. I could go into detail about a lot of issues and problems. I could talk about some awful things I did to people. But I just want you to know that it was a struggle at the beginning. But here I am, I'm 57 years old. I got a long recovery behind me. But in today's world and how they are, you got to be careful. Be extremely careful with women at church. And I know people get offended at that, but I'm being honest with you. Because I've walked that route. The majority, I'm not saying all, but the great majority of women have issues, and you're going to take on their issues, and it's going to create problems. I've met plenty and dated plenty, many just one day, and broke it off. In 1 Corinthians chapter 6, it says that Remember the verse that says, don't get caught up with prostitutes, because the Bible says the two shall become one flesh.
Amen.
Okay, I got one flesh here. I got 2 arms and 2 legs. It says that him who is joined together, it's a verse for marriage. It says the two shall become one flesh. Once you join up sexually, for some reason, there's a tie there. There's a hold there. You know, if my arm, who used to not be my arm, is now my arm, I don't want to cut this arm off. This is a part of my body. If I cut it off, it's going to be very painful. It's going to hurt very bad. And I tell you, I've had to cut that arm off many times because of sexual problems early on. And, you know, once you get caught up, it's hard to break away. That's why you gotta, don't think that you can put fire in your bosom, it says in Proverbs. Don't think you can put fire in your bosom and not be burned. You know, it says that if you get connected with a wayward woman, it says her steps will lead you into hell, it says in Proverbs. It says that all your wealth will be gone. It says that her seemingly husband or boyfriend will come looking for you and will destroy you. Proverbs is pretty clear about a lot of sexual verses in Proverbs that really kind of hit home and bothered me quite often early on when I read it all. Like, wow, I hear it, but can I do it? I often ask myself that. I hear all these warnings, but am I willing to trespass against the sign and try to work my way around? It's like going into a property where you know you probably get shot, but maybe if I hide behind a tree I can escape. You know, you really got to address and get a handle on the sexual part. And I've heard some people go to great lengths and have accomplished a lot, and others have struggles through it. But moving on here, page 70, it states this. I got this whole rest of this paragraph highlighted, and I got this line underlined. If we are sorry for what we have done and have the honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe we will be forgiven and will have learned our lesson. If we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, and we are quite sure to drink, we are not theorizing. These are facts out of our experience. So in other words, it's saying if you fail, you can get back up without maybe probably drinking. But if you continue that mindset and continue to live a rebellious, ungodly life in that area of your life, you're surely to drink. That's what they're saying. And they're saying, look, we're not guessing at this. This is not a theory. We're telling you from experience. These are alcoholics, drug addicts saying from their own experience, saying, look, this is going to be the facts. If you continue to live like this, unrestrained, ungodly, you're sure to start drinking too. That's what they're saying. And if my whole life's going to be destroyed and I can't limit what the results is going to be, then I got to stay away from those things. Someone turn to 2 Corinthians 7, verse 10. It's written on the side. It says, worldly sorrow and godly sorrow. 2 Corinthians 7:10. Someone read that for me real quick.
Godly sorrow brings repentance that leads to salvation and leaves no regret. But worldly sorrow brings death.
Okay, godly sorrow, worldly sorrow. Am I really sorry? Am I just sorry because of the possible consequences, but I still want to try to figure out a way to keep doing it? It says, if we are sorry for what we have done. That's the question. Am I sorry? Ask yourself that. Am I sorry for what I have done? Some may say yes, some may say no. It says, and have the honest desire to let God. Do I have an honest desire to want to have a better life? I can guarantee you there's some around this table that do not want a better life. You ever see a tornado go through? I mean, a hurricane go through? and you're in the eye of the storm just for a little while, and then the wall of the other side comes and hits you full force. Some of us are in the eye of the storm. We're in the calm, but we have no intentions on wanting a better life. We'd love to have it, but we don't want to pay the price to get it.
Amen.
We want to take the easy road. But there's a price that does have to be paid, because the flesh and self wants what it wants, and it's opposing God. And we've got to be on the Lord's side. Old Testament prophet went before people and said, choose you this day whom you will serve. It's a choice. I want what God has. I want eternal life. I want what God has, and I want a future. And I want peace in my life.
Amen.
But I got to start by being honest before God that I want a better life. It says we believe we will be forgiven, and we'll have learned our lesson. Okay, the next paragraph. To sum up about sex, we earnestly pray. I got that circled. You see that? We earnestly pray for the right idea, for guidance in each questionable situation, for sanity, and for the strength to do the right thing. I got that circled. For the strength to do the right thing. Want to do the right thing. You know, this area here around Panama City seems to be much easier for men to handle sexual addiction than the inner city. The inner city, believe me, is no joke. It is very difficult to live in that mess and stay sober in all areas of your life. Here it seems to be a little easier. Things aren't as blatant and overt. It's not really a big city where you have a lot of crime like you'd have in an inner city. But the strength, I pray for the strength to do the right thing. If sex is very troublesome, that's a question. If sex is very troublesome, for some of us in this room, we may have never told anybody, but privately, that hits home. Sex is very troublesome. And you probably never told a soul that you're having these issues and problems. But it says if sex is very troublesome, we throw ourselves the harder into helping others. In other words, don't get isolated in your own thinking. Stay busy. Stay committed to busyness in helping others. It says we think of their needs and work for them. That's why when you come into the program, we want you to mentor someone else. And a lot of times people did not understand why are you having guys who still have issues trying to help someone else who just came into the program. You got phase 1 helping evaluation. Oh, no, you can't do that. Listen, I'm telling you from experience, get busy.
Amen.
Helping other people. If you got a month you can share and help other people. If you made it a month and someone else hasn't, you got something to offer. You got something to show to help that person through. You've got to take on other people to help them through. It makes them feel valued because you care about them. And you're valued because you're helping someone else. We think of their needs and work for them. This takes us out of ourselves. It quiets the imperious urge. When to yield would mean heartache. So in the left column it says Romans 13:14. Create preventative measures ahead of time. Romans 13:14, it says make no provision for the flesh to fulfill the lust thereof. The number one thing you've got to do is get rid of women's phone numbers and condoms in your drawer or in your sock or wherever you got them hiding. You've got to make a decision to try to make a clean break from your past. As long as you're holding on, you can't get there. You've got to make a clean break to begin with. It says you live. It said one of the goals is to to live where your conscience is void of offense against God and man. Void of offense. If you don't make that decision, your conscience will never be clear. You can never get the power to overcome your addiction. You are wasting your time until you make a full commitment to say, okay, I know I got problems, but maybe next week I'll end up going back out and buying it. Maybe next week I'll fall short. But you take it a day at a time. There's one time when I had this girl's phone number during a time of weakness early on. And that verse, again, came around and convicted me. Make no provision. I felt so bad after being with her. I felt so guilty. I want to get things right with God. I've got to ask God's forgiveness. I took that. I was so mad at myself. I was so discouraged. I took that phone number and I just threw it. But deep within my mind, I was setting up for a back door. I didn't get rid of it where I couldn't go back to look for it. I threw it over a 6-foot high fence into a field. And a week later, I'm like, wow, I'm feeling a little different now. I was so sorry. A week ago. I'm starting to feel lonely here. And sure enough, just like a drug addict, I climbed that fence, risking maybe getting caught on the wire up top, going over there trying to search, and it had rained that week, and thing was long gone. I'm like, oh man, I gotta try to keep working on this. That's what I said to myself. This is crazy. But that verse saved my life many times. You've got to live by that verse. I'm telling you right now, if you do not, you're wasting your time. There's no use of you being in this program. I'm just being honest with you. If you're not willing to clean house and try to work on it and get it right, then you're still full of self and you're not caring about God. You're still playing God. Like it says in the AA book, you're still playing God. You've got to let God be the director. You've got to let him be the boss. And you've got to let him call the shots. And you got to take that step, as painful as it is. You've got to take a clear step. You've got to do it. Do it painfully, but do it. And take it in the right direction. There's times when I had, this was before the internet, would get pornography magazine, look at it, and then I'd feel so guilty and bad, like, God, I just disappointed and hurt you. Hurting my own life. I can't live like this. I'd throw that thing out. Weeks later, here I am going back spending, $10. I'm like, what a waste of money. I just threw it out. I should have saved it. The flesh is wrestling, saying, I want it. But my new man is wrestling, saying, no. You've got to fight this battle. I don't know how much money I spent going back and then obeying that verse, going back and then obeying that verse. But at least I struggled to try to obey God, even though I failed at times. I kept bringing that verse back to mind. There's times when I had bought condoms because I needed them for that day. And then, again, feeling guilty afterwards, I threw them out, got rid of it. Weeks later, it occurred again. But at least I'm fighting the fight. If you're not even fighting, then you're already defeated. You're already knocked out. You might as well leave the ring because you're already knocked out. Let them carry you out on a stretcher because you're already knocked out. But at least if you're going to be in this fight. Keep fighting. If you get knocked down, don't wait till count 10. Get back up. Clean your house. And then get ready for another fight. But keep fighting and keep praying that God will, like it says here, earnestly pray for strength, that God will clean this thing out of your life or give you a way to get a handle on trying to deal with it so it don't go into a grosser type of situation. Okay, the next paragraph. If we have been. See it? You see that? Everybody paying attention? if we have been thorough about our personal inventory. On the left margin, it says 9 goals working step 4. Okay, if we have been thorough about our personal inventory, number 1, we have written down a lot. We have, number 2, listed. Number 3, and analyzed our resentments. Number 4, we have begun to comprehend their futility and their fatality. We have commenced to see their terrible destructiveness. 5, we have begun to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill toward all men, even our enemies. Let me tell you something. I watch and I hear, and we have very little tolerance for our fellow man. This program is a training program, and I'm sorry, but I'm not going to make it like a nursery school for you. You hear me? If you can't handle the differences of opinion, the way people treat you, and you can't be Christ-like and react in a godly way, on both sides, and learn to work with these issues in your life, it's just a symptom of where you're headed eventually when you get to phase 4. If I took away all your pain, all your suffering, all your challenges, all your temptations, and I took everything away, what would challenge you to grow? Sometimes God will allow people to rub us the wrong way to see where we're at. He wants to see, and He wants us to see for ourselves. You're not as far along as you think you are. You're doing fine when everything's your way. But how about if I let this happen, God says. Let me see. And we just lose the lesson. Tolerance. It says that we have begun to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill toward all men, even our enemies. That's a growth, because when we get out in the real world, it's not going to be perfect. You're going to have some terrible, terrible things say and done to you. And you've got to learn how to hold your tongue at times. You've got to learn how to allow yourself, like Paul said, allow yourself to be defrauded. In other words, even when you think you're doing right and that you're right and that person is wrong, allow yourself to be defrauded means sometimes you got to allow that person to be right even though you think they're wrong. You've got to show that. That takes some guts. That takes some spiritual growth on your part to be able to hold your tongue and do that. But if you're going to succeed in life, and you want to have blessings in your life, and you want to be successful in life, you've got to learn to be tolerant of other people's behavior. I'll tell you, it grits at me every day. Things occur every day. And there's things I could tell you right now that bother me from time to time, but since this is on video, I'm not going to go there in case they end up watching the video. They might think, well, I think he's talking about me, even though he didn't mention anybody's name. But there are things that are frustrating, things that are difficult, but it takes tolerance, it takes patience, dealing and working around other people. There's jobs out there that you've got to, if you don't learn it now, you're not going to succeed. Because when you get out there, you're not going to have a perfect environment to work in. And God will never give you the car keys until you grow up. Do you hear me? If God has this beautiful, figuratively speaking, this beautiful car for you, this great thing in your life, but you're not there yet, then God has to mold your character to get you there. He has to mold your character and get you there. And if you're unwilling to get there, God will never give you the keys. I can guarantee you, God will never give you the car keys. Because He can't risk you getting into a wreck with His beautiful car. It's not yours, it's His. He's just going to lend it to you. But not until you're ready. And in a recovery program, it's Navy SEAL time. God's going to take you through the ringer to clean you up. And there's inherited weaknesses we got. God says, oh no, I can't get you where you need to be in phase 4 until you start dealing with some things. And He may deliberately send send the most nastiest, most ignorant, most unlovely person your way, just to rile you up and get you to show you, hey, you got some things you need to work on. Because when I get you here and I give you this brand new Cadillac, there's going to be some things you got to learn how to tolerate. You can't drive that car. And I can guarantee you, if you allow God to mold you and work in your life and take you from A to B to C to D, eventually you're going to hit a home run. And your ship will come in. God will provide and make a way for something good to occur in your life. In the Bible, it says that if you're faithful in what? Little, He will make you ruler over much. You know, I've told people time and time again, I know exactly where you're at. All I got to do is see how you carry yourself and how you do. If you're unwilling to go a second mile, I can guarantee you God will not go a second mile for you. If you're unwilling to take an extra step and do something that you know is not your job, but you're going to do it anyways, God's not going to do it for you. It says the same measure you measure out, it says in Matthew 7, the same measure you measure out will be measured back to you. Same judgment you judge will be judged back to you. You've got to put your heart and soul into things. There was a guy in the program. Kevin knows this person, and I'm gonna tell you who the person is. There's a guy named Charles. I'm gonna just use his first name, Charles. Came into the program with a bullet in his head. Can you imagine? They couldn't take the bullet out, but he survived. But because of medical reasons, they had to leave the bullet lodged in his brain. Comes into the recovery program. Goes through the recovery program. Succeeds. And he kept coming back to teach a class in the recovery program and to mentor and work with guys after graduation. And he said to me, he said, listen, when I was in the program, this is the mindset I had. And I'll tell you what he's doing today. He's a great, successful individual. He said, when I was in the program, I was so earnestly set on wanting my life to change. My mindset, his job was to clean the toilets at the mission. And he said, when I went into the bathroom, the toilet was my altar to God. He said, I'd get down on my knees and I'd clean up underneath the toilet. He said, I just didn't do a quick wipe and walk out and do a half job. He said, this was my thank you back to God, my service back to God. And he said, I'd get down on my knees and I'd clean this toilet. And he said, this was my prayer every day. God, the way I clean this toilet is the way I want you to clean up my life. And I tell you, he was very thorough in cleaning the bathrooms. He did a great job. But his mindset was, I want you, God, to do great things in my life. And now he is married, has a wonderful wife. He has an upper level certification in addictions, and he's running a 50-man recovery program in California. And he's been doing it for, I think it's now 6 years, something like that. Great success story. And it says, many are called, but few are chosen. Many are called, but few are chosen. There are many people who come into the program, but only a few will actually make it, because most do not have that mindset. They could care less. They're not here for no change. And they're not going to pay the price. Anything that costs something, they're not going to do that. But I challenge you to make that commitment and be one of the few that is going to take it all the way and let God be God in your life. Okay, the last paragraph, bottom of page 70. In this book, you read again and again that faith did for us what we could not do for ourselves. We hope you are, number 8, convinced now that God can remove whatever self-will has blocked you off from Him. If you have already made a decision and, number 9, an inventory of your grosser handicaps, you have made a good beginning. That being so, you have swallowed and digested some big chunks of truth about yourself. Some of us never want to face the truth about ourselves. We never want to address it nor face it. We're in a state of denial and dishonesty throughout the entire program. Okay, let's look at a few verses here. Someone read John 8:12. And when you're reading 8:12, someone get 2 Peter 2:20 and be ready to read it when I call on it. John 8:12.
Then Jesus spoke to them again, saying, I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life.
Okay, now, question 1. Who are you following? One time a weird thing happened to me. I was in a store with my parents. They went off and did their shopping. I did mine. And I was standing in line. I paid for my item. And there was people ahead of me paying for their item. And as I walked out, I waited outside. And the girl that had been paying for her item in front of me, she waited outside. And then when I got outside, I waited outside. And the weirdest girl I ever came across, she was like 10 feet away from me. I was minding my own business, just standing there. And she turned around and said, are you following me? And that actually scared me. That actually scared me. I'm thinking, what's this girl, weirdo? She said, are you following me? She said, you look familiar. I think I know you. I'm like, I didn't do nothing to you. I was thinking, I was a little scared, like, what do you mean you know me? No, she was a frightening. She wasn't trying to catch nothing. She was a wacko. She was scary. But follow. You know what it means to follow, right?
Stop.
It means to follow. When you're following something, you're trying to go in the direction that they're going, right? And Jesus said, if you follow me, it's going to benefit you. So the question is, who are you following? Are you actually following God? That's a big question. Or are you just following yourself? Are you actually following God? Okay, who had that other verse? 2 Peter 2:20.
For if after they have escaped the defilements of the world through the knowledge of our Lord and our Savior Jesus Christ, they are again entangled in them and overcome, the last state has become worse for them than the first.
Okay, isn't that true about addiction? If you relapse, you start off where you left off, right? Regardless of your intentions, you start off where you left off.
Yep.
And you usually do things that you've never done before. Now, one guy who graduated in relapse, I'm not going to mention their name, they said when they relapsed that they shot up with a needle. He said they never did that before. Some will go to places where angels fairly tread that they've never been to before. You tend to get worse off, and quite many die because their body has already readjusted back to not having the drug. And I would have been dead after the second relapse. At some point, it got really bad. But one day I had a little bit of sense because a friend of mine offered, which was called green barrels. Never heard of them.
Yeah, I heard about them.
At that point, I never heard of that specific drug. Real small pill. Very, very small. You think this thing couldn't do nothing. Very small. It looked like a little green barrel. And he said, here, take 6. He said, I take 6 all the time. Here, you take 6. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. I'm not totally insane. I said, no, just give me 1. And I'll tell you, I don't know what was going on with him because he took the 6. But the one was so severely, it had me on a trip of hallucination for 12 hours that I didn't know reality from fantasy, and all kinds of stuff was going on, and I drove under it. It's a wonder I didn't destroy my whole life and get stopped by the police, because I was trying to figure out reality from fantasy while driving. And they played with my mind. You're going too slow. I'm like, well, I am going slow, but maybe I'm going fast. And then they say, well, the police are behind you. And I look, and the police are behind me. Then I look again, and the police isn't there. I'm like, no, wait a minute. Is the police actually there? I can't imagine how I stayed on the road that way. God spared my consequences and my stupidity, brought me out of that relapse. And it was much more severe than that. There was other stuff going on, and it was very, very bad. I laid prostrate out on the ground for 3 days, crying out to God, and it took me 6 months to get my head on straight, after I made a decision to get my head on straight. It was a lesson learned, and I never drank or drugged after that. And I have all these years clean after that episode. But it's very important that things will get worse if we don't say, I'm divorcing my past. And then, let me just look at one more verse, because I'm not going to look at all of them. James 1:27. Someone read that for me. James 1:27. We'll close with this.
Religion that God our Father set as pure and faultless. Look at the workers in His will and their distress. Keep myself from being polluted by it.
Okay, in the King James, the last part of that verse says, and keep yourself unspotted from the world. That means you've got to make a decision to leave this world behind. You can no longer go to the places you used to go to. You got to start a new life, and you got to avoid areas of temptation. As long as you avoid areas of temptation, you're going to do much better. But if you go where you know you're at risk of being tempted, then eventually you're going to fall. So you got to separate from people, places, and things, and be unspotted from the world. Did you spot Johnny the other day? No, I can't find him. He's nowhere to be found. Wow, we can't find him either. Keep yourself unspotted from the world and live the life that God wants you to have. Okay, someone want to close this out?